right. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Anita Janke, our Executive Director of Career Transition Center of Chicago. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Chuck. So I'm really pleased to be here tonight. If for some reason you can't hear me at any point, just give me a shout out. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you and to tell you more about the Career Transition Center. So again, over 40 and hired. I am the Executive Director of the Career Transition Center, and we are a nonprofit organization. There we go. And we specifically focus on mid-career professionals, folks 40 to 65 years of age who are unemployed, underemployed, or unfulfilled. And in talking with you all, I get the sense that everybody fits into one of those categories. So I'm super excited to have you tonight to talk about over 40 and hired. What does it mean to be a mid-career professional in the current economy? But before we do, let me do a few housekeeping things. If you need to use the restroom, we're all adults, feel free to do so. Just go out in the hallway, take a left. There's water there. Again, if you feel like you need to get up and get some water, please do so. I will not be offended. And I'm hoping at various points you'll jump in, ask questions, and we'll share with one another. I also wanted to point out that Columbia College is the newest sponsor of the Career Transition Center. We work with local colleges, universities, and faith communities in partnership to bring our programming to their members. So we're super excited to be working with Columbia. And we do charge a small fee for our services, and you get a $100 discount off in the first quarter of services, courtesy of Columbia College. This is the first in a series of 3 workshops, so I am super excited to have such a great response to the first one. The other thing I did want to mention to you is that we are kicking off in October an e-learning series on building a better network. So if you're interested, there's a sign-up sheet in the back, and Chuck will also follow up with an email and send you more information. No obligation. It's simply how to build a better network, how to use LinkedIn more effectively, and how to build your online and in-person network. So it's just our gift to you. So we'll talk a little bit more about CTC at the end, but I just wanted to let you know that if you're interested, we have over 40 volunteer career coaches who work with our coaches one-on-one to provide coaching and strategic advice on career transition. And I'm happy to talk about that more at the end. In the meantime, this is one of my favorite workshops to do. I'm 53. Just turned. I'm proud of being a baby boomer, and I think we have so much to offer, and I'm very excited that you all came. I think that it's really important to realize that you have a lot of control over how you're perceived in the job search. So it's not just, being relegated to the trash heaps. If you're 40, you have a lot to offer, and we're going to take stock of that tonight. It's about mindset. It's not about letting other people determine your worth, and we're going to take control of this conversation, okay? There are 4 generations in the workplace right now: the builders, which are our parents, baby boomers, millennials, and Gen X. We still have a lot to contribute, and we have a lot to offer. I think we have some unique skills and talents, and we're going to talk about that and how you can leverage that when you talk about yourself while you're networking and while you're interviewing. Okay. So we're going to talk about the current employer environment, smart career management, managing ageism, job search tips, and some resources ranging from social media to Columbia to AARP. I'm a member of AARP. I love them. They have some good things. Do not stigmatize them. They have Work Reimagined, Life Reimagined, some really good resources. Okay. So, the average U.S. worker changes careers 5 to 7 times over a lifetime. I would challenge that and say the cycle time between jobs now is about every 3 years. So let's do a quick survey here. How many of you would you consider yourselves underemployed? Okay. How many of you would say you're flat out unemployed? Okay. And how many of you are employed? And of those, how many of you would say you're maybe unfulfilled? Okay, so everybody's looking to make a change, right? Excellent. I think the economy is in the right place for you to do that. Because my sense, we work with about 400 people each year, about 70% are 40 to 65 years of age. People have been afraid to make a change because they're like, last hired, first fired. But I think the economy is robust enough that I think it's a good time to be looking to make a change, whether it's starting a business, changing jobs, getting a better job. So that's the good news. Again, this is a very different economy. When I graduated in 82, or no, I started college in 82. I graduated in like 85. The goal then was to get the job and be the company gal, like get the job, stay there for like 20 years, retire, right? No, not anymore. Now it's 3 years cycle time. You have to be flexible and you have to be adaptable. And really, we're talking quite a bit about the gig economy. I mean, it's a lot of contract work, a lot of consulting. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because as people get older, I find they have more of an interest and a need for flexibility, either personally or because of elder care. So in actuality, this is a good time to be an over 40 worker, okay? All right. So the first thing I'd like to do is a little bit of values clarification. So if you look in in the PowerPoint, you'll see that there's a slide, and it's a full-page slide. The first one is, what do you want in your career and life? So when you're thinking about making a career change, the first thing you've got to figure out is, what do you want? If what you're doing now is not working for you, what is going to work for you? So what I'd like you to do is to take a few minutes and figure out which 5 of these speak to you as being the most important. What do you want in your career and life? Because if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to be able to find it. And we want to avoid getting in the same situation you're in right now. So let's take a few minutes and do that. Okay, would you say you're mostly done? Hands up if you're done. Okay, looks like we're mostly done. Anybody want to share maybe their top 1? Yes? High income, okay. All right, okay. Yes?
Being content with work.
Being content with work. Yes, did you want to share one?
Having major accomplishments.
Okay, I like that. Yes?
Low stress work.
Low stress. Okay. Yes? Being independent. Okay. Yes?
Gaining new knowledge.
Gaining new knowledge. I like that. I like that in particular because it really speaks to the importance of being a lifelong learner. And I think that's something that distinguishes the baby boomers. Let me tell you, I think one of the advantages we've got in this labor market is we are uber flexible. For example, let's think about this. When I started college in 82, I don't really remember computers being a big thing other than in the like information technology department. By the time I was in grad school, you had to have a computer to do your papers, right? So we went from the no computers to having to really embrace it. Well, our children, grandchildren, they were born into it, but we had to make a pretty seismic shift, and I think that speaks to our flexibility and our adaptability. So the next time somebody makes a comment about somebody over 40 being a Luddite, it's not true, and we know that, right? Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. So you're beginning to do a little bit of values clarification. What do I want? What do I need? Because what you need now, frankly, is quite different than what you needed in your 20s and 30s. I'm with you on this. I have elder care issues, but I still have a lot of energy and I want to accomplish things, and I still need to make a good salary. So there are some tensions, but I think it's important to know up front what you need and what you want, so you at least are clear and transparent with yourself, so that when you start looking, you can be clear about what is a viable employment situation. Okay, so the next one is, what do you offer a prospective employer, right? Let's take a few minutes and look at that. So what do you have to offer? Are you innovative? Are you good at organizing? Are you good at problem resolution? So what do you have to offer? What are your top 5 strengths? Hopefully this is a little easier. Okay, so raise your hands if you are basically done. Okay, great. So actually I sense this might have been a little more difficult. Okay. So can I ask if somebody would share maybe their top, what they think is their most important strength? Okay. Excellent. Yes, and that is extremely important in a multicultural, multi-generational workforce. Very important. Anybody? Yes. Organizing things. Yes, I think that's critically important in a very complex work environment where increasingly you're expected to do everything and you don't have admin assistance. I mean, really, it's become very important to be able to organize work. Anything else? Yes.
I guess I put achieving results because I used to work in PR, and so we had to get a certain number of stories placed in the media, and so I remember it was very tangible.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I remember some of my first jobs out of school. I was a journalist, and then went in to work at a nonprofit and running a training program. And both are very outcome driven. Absolutely, yes, yes.
Client and customer sustainability.
Good, good. Again, and that's really kind of an extension of relationship development and interpersonal skills. I think that's another advantage we have as baby boomers. Haven't spent as much time and are not as sort of barricaded behind technology. We spend a lot more time connecting with people. We're a connector generation. And I think that's a very important strength. So when you're thinking about how to describe yourself, when you're networking, how you describe yourself when you introduce yourself, your LinkedIn profile, your resume, think about these skills. These are very important and they're very desirable, okay? So, this, I think, is a very interesting slide. In 2012, the National Association of Colleges and Employers commissioned a study and asked employers what were the top 10 transferable skills that they sought in employees. So, work in a team structure, relationship building, remember? Verbal communication with others, relationship development. Make decisions and solve problems, obtain and process information. We talked about organizing information. Planning, organizing, prioritizing work, analyzing quantitative data, technical knowledge related to the job. Oops, sorry about that. Proficiency with computer software programs, create and edit written reports, sell and influence others. So those things that you all mentioned are beautifully aligned with what employers are saying that they need, right? So right there, I think we should give ourselves a little boost because we now know that the skills that we have are exactly what employers are looking for. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do after this workshop is not listen to the news so much, because there's way too much focus on age discrimination, way too much on, how talented the millennials are, and there's no doubt they are, but we have some unique talents and skills, and I tend to see a relationship between people feeling frustrated and watching too much news. So we need to focus on the positive, right? I think this is just a wonderful example of speaking to the value of the over 40 crowd. Okay, so we've done a little bit of the groundwork. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We've done a little bit of the groundwork tonight. So what I want to do is to talk about a value statement, also known as an elevator pitch. So when you introduce yourself to somebody, you need to be able to articulate your value and tell them about yourself and how they can help you. Because if you cannot tell people what you're looking for and how they can help you, they cannot help you. And it's frustrating for everybody. So it's real important. Once you develop this and you fine-tune it, it will work for your verbal introduction, your resume, and your LinkedIn profile. So it's really important. Help people help you, okay? The basic components are how I serve, your background and how you add value, relevant experience, 2 or 3 things that make you a good fit, work pursuing, your career focus, and identifying connections, the ask. What are you hoping to get out of the conversation? So this is just a very simple one. I help organizations build the right systems and obtain needed resources to support their mission and activities. That's how you serve. Relevant experience. My experience is corporate finance for Fortune 1000 companies. I've volunteered with nonprofits and finance, and currently serve as the treasurer of the Mission Giving Committee of my church. I'm active in the Illinois CPA Society. This, I think, is important because it talks about not only what you are doing, but it also shows that you're looking to build and extend your skills. Volunteer work, as we've talked about, is vitally important for building new skill sets, particularly if you're in transition. And it also shows that you're active in the professional association in which you're involved. So it shows that you're engaged, you're continuing to learn, you're a lifelong learner. I'm looking for a senior finance position at an established nonprofit that serves the homeless. So this is somebody who's looking to make a shift, to go from corporate to nonprofit work. The ask, I'm actively working to learn more about and network into organizations like the Greater Chicago Food Depository, Open Hand Chicago, and others. Can you suggest someone who'd offer good advice who might also be well-connected? Let me just say, and I think it should be obvious, never put the bite on somebody for a job and say, I'm looking for a job, can you help me? That's putting too much pressure on the other person, that's shutting down communication. When you introduce yourself, your goal is to really build a relationship with this person, because over time, building a strong relationship with somebody, creating a rapport will pay off dividends. You'll develop a relationship, you could become friends, they could be an advocate, they could help you identify job leads, but I think putting somebody on the spot for a job is no-go. And it's also not fair to shove your responsibility off on them. So, the ability to write this is dependent on knowing what you want to do. So let's do a quick hand raise. How many of you know what you would like to do next? Okay. And how many of you think you might have an idea? And how many of you have no idea? Okay. All right, so great. We either know or we think we know. We've got a few that are really contemplating. Okay. So what I would say is if you think you might know, pick one viable option and use that as a basis for developing your own value statement. So what I'd like you to do is in this packet, you'll see a full page blank one. I'd like you to take, let's take 5 minutes initially and see what we can do with that. And I'm going to go around and just talk and just check on people. So let's take 5-7 minutes to see what we can do to put together the draft of a value statement. Because I want you to come out of here with something tangible. I want you to come out of here with a statement that speaks to your value. Okay? All right. So let's take 5 to 7 minutes. Okay. Yes?
Did you say not to use that statement? Like, can you suggest someone who'd offer good advice?
No, you should. I would put it that way. I wouldn't go straight out, I need a job, do you know of any jobs? Yeah, no, not that. Yeah, I think we all know what we're trying to accomplish when we network. There's no sense being, yes, because I think it tends to put people off a little bit, yeah. Okay.
Can
Yeah.
you share where we would use this value statement? Is this something that you would put on a resume, because I can see how it can fit there?
Yes.
Or is it something that you would use in an elevator?
I think you would use it in 3 ways. Elevator pitch, and then with a little tweaking, refining, I think you could use it for your resume and your LinkedIn profile, because really, you want to have a brand alignment. You want to be consistent in how you're verbally introducing yourself, what you look like on paper, and your LinkedIn profile. You need to have a consistency so that you don't confuse people. And yes, I think this is a critical, mission-critical piece for helping you articulate your value and to network, to help people, to meet people, to have them help you. So this is basically your elevator pitch. Yes. This is one of the most important things you've got to do, because if you can tell people how they can help you, I find that people will want to help you. But if you have some vague, like I'm thinking about accounting and maybe at a nonprofit, but do you have any ideas? I mean, that's really hard to know what to do with. But the more clear and specific, the easier it is for somebody to think, oh, I heard about this job, or I know this person, and I think you might want to talk about it to them. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's take some 5 to 7 minutes and see what we can do with that. Okay, so are we now in part 4? We pretty much got it done? Okay. So what I'd like to ask, and again, we're here to be supportive, encouraging, and to share feedback. Would anybody be willing to share the first section? Don't make me call on you. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
I develop content for publishers and businesses that strengthens their brand, increases awareness of products and services, and generates revenues.
I love it. Really good. Very specific.
Worried about maybe two.
And you know what? You're going to have a long version and a short version. And based on the situation, if it's like at a job fair, you may need to do like a quick flash introduction. But if it's a networking meeting and you've got like some 45 minutes, you'll do something more in depth. But I like that. I mean, you've been really specific about what you do. Thank you. So what do we think? Does that tell you a lot about her? Does it get your mind thinking, how can I help her? Who might I know? Because I think the basis of networking is fundamentally the belief that other people are good and want to help you. You just have to help them help you. So I think that was really clear. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? I'd like to hear a few more. Okay, yes.
I'm an excellent writer. I can convey ideas and information in a clear, succinct, and informative manner. And I'm also skilled at building relationships with people and getting them interested in what I have to say or offer.
I like that. Thank you. Any feedback? Suggestions? You guys, does that feel like you have a sense of her? Yeah? Okay. All right. Can we have someone else? Yes. Okay.
So I have experience in building lasting relationships by developing creative avenues to achieve specific client needs through use of collaborative tools, focusing on clients' desired end results, and creating the best avenue to achieve those client-specific end goals.
I like it. I think it would help if you could be like a little more specific when you talk about different avenues. Are you talking like social media? Are you talking videos? Are you...
Social media, arts.
Okay. I think I liked it, but I think if you can be a little tad more specific, like these two were in like, writing and public relations, but you're talking technology, video, social media, and I think, if you can like own that and really speak to that, I think that would make it even more powerful. Okay, I like that. Okay, so let's take a stab at number 2, relevant experience. This, I suspect, may be the second hardest for folks, because what I'm asking you to do is to speak to some of the most important things in your background, where you see yourself having had the biggest impact. So anybody willing to share the second section with us? Again, think of this as workshopping it. Okay, thank you.
Several years of working in administration, relationship building, and training.
Okay, I'm sorry, say that again?
Several years of working in administration, relationship building, and training.
Okay,
2 to 3 things that I can think of.
I think you've got the bones there and we need to put a little meat on it. So, could you talk about the fact that you've had experience working in, okay, so I know you and I worked together at the Women's Treatment Center. So you worked in healthcare and addiction services. What are some other fields? I know you've done a couple. Pharmaceutical sales. So you worked in healthcare, addiction services, and
Social service, child welfare, 12 years of child welfare.
child welfare. So you have a very robust human services, healthcare background. So I think I might say you have extensive expertise in healthcare, addiction services, child welfare, human services, and you might mention a couple of those that people might, be aware of. Pick the ones like we were talking about that might be top of mind. Like I think a lot of people would be like, oh, Women's Treatment Center. That has a certain cachet. It's one of the only 2 places in the city that allows women to bring their children with them into treatment. I think it's an important institution in Chicago. So I would think about talking about how what you've done there supports your desire to look for a training and development position. Okay. Anybody else willing to share? Yes, thank you.
I taught, directed, and wrote musical theater and film appreciation for 25 years.
Okay. I think there might be some value in just not focusing on the years and just focusing in on what you've done. Is there anything you could speak to, like where you got, bless me, there's certain awards like theaters get. Thank you. Did you get any awards? Who cares where it's at? Can you say, wrote, directed, community theater, won 2 Jeff Awards? I think that gives it a little cachet and it gets people's attention. I'm a subscriber to my favorite theater, Timeline, and they've gotten several Jeff Awards, and I'm just really proud of them. So when people say something like that, my ears perk up. I'm like, ooh, they're almost as good as Timeline, that kind of thing. So I think people like to hear that, and I think it's a good time and a good place to toot your own horn. So I would try and do that. Yes?
I have a question, actually. Why, do you think it's not a good idea to say how many years of experience because of ageism? Or?
You know what? I tend to think in terms of 10-year increments. Your resume should be 10 years. It doesn't need to be going back to the beginning of time. One, you need to keep it to 2 pages, and the last 10 years are the most relevant. On the other hand, we did have a client who had, at the beginning of her career, worked for, I think it's Ernst & Young and like healthcare consulting. Then when she left there, she started her own business, had a temp agency, and during the recession it closed, and she decided that she wanted to go back into healthcare consulting, so she of course put that back on her resume. So that's a situation where you'd want to invoke something from the past, but in general, people really are only concerned about the last 10 years. So I just think it's sort of, that's sort of the standard now is 10 years. I mean, on LinkedIn, I don't go back more than 10 years. On my resume, I don't go back more than 10 years. I don't think it's really necessary. Yes?
What if you've been doing the same thing for like over 20 years?
Well, that's okay. I mean, like we had a client who'd been, I think she was the director of communications at Lutheran Family Services for like 18 years. Well, yeah, you're not going to just cut it off there, no doubt. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm just not sure that longevity in a position is necessarily going to be the thing that's going to make a difference in people. In how they perceive you. They're going to be looking at what skill sets do you have. So I prefer to emphasize skill sets over tenure in a position, because I think it's really about what skills have you got, not how much seat time you've got. Yes?
And that's the trick. To me,
Yes.
I've been doing what I've done for 20 years.
Yeah.
But then there are skill sets that from my previous experience that I want to transition.
Then you should include those, like the woman I mentioned who had worked at Ernst & Young and healthcare consulting, had her own business for like 20 years, but she wanted to go back into healthcare consulting, then absolutely you need to include that on your resume. I would agree. I mean, this is somewhat of a common sense thing. I mean, part of it is how much can you cover in 2 pages? And you do not, unless it's a CV, you don't want to go past 2 pages, right? So to a certain extent, the 2 pages sort of dictates 10 years. Plus, I don't think in most cases it's that relevant unless it's something you're invoking from the beginning of your career. Yeah. Yeah. Yes?
Do you think in academia, a CV or a resume, I feel like CVs are more common?
Yeah. I mean, CVs have a whole different set of standards. They can be, I mean, I've seen some from our coaches that are like 7 and 8 pages with all the papers they've done. That's a different thing. I'm talking more of a resume. But in a CV, there's a different set of rules, absolutely. Yeah. And you'll want to cover everything. Curriculum vitae, it's for professors and such. Oh, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Sure. Does that help? Okay. So we have coaches that are psychologists as well as career coaches. So they teach like adjunct faculty at Adler or Chicago School. So they'll have a CV for that. And then when they have their coaching practice, when they're looking to build their client base, they'll have a resume. So some people may have both. It just depends on what you're doing. Yeah. Yes? Sure. No, that's okay. Yes.
And obviously, experience is the most important emphasis of the skill set.
Mm-hmm.
But career does, like,
So the format, okay, so here's what I would recommend. You need to have your professionals, all right, well, first of all, you need to have your name, your cell phone, your email, your LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, what all that. I would not put your home address. Not necessary and sometimes not helpful, so just leave it off. A couple of reasons. We have a number of clients that live in Northwest Indiana and are trying to get jobs in Chicago. Well, you can easily take a commuter train. It's not the employer's business where you live and how you get yourself to work, but they could use it as an exclusionary factor, right? So don't give them ammunition. Sometimes people that, like, businesses in the suburbs, they're like, oh, God, I don't want a reverse commute employee. They don't need to know where you live. It's your business. I also think we have to be clear that there's also bias against where people live, right? People of color. We have some clients that live on the Gold Coast, for example, and they're looking to get like a part-time job, and people might have a bias against them, thinking, oh, they're dilettantes, they're not going to really follow through and be good employees. So no need to put your address. Then I would think you should have a professional summary, which is this sort of primarily the first one that we're talking about. Then I think your decision from there is dependent on a couple of factors. If you're in transition and you're not working full-time and you're doing volunteer work to build new skills, I would put a section on nonprofit volunteer work that would talk about the kinds of volunteer work you're doing that shows you're keeping your skills fresh, you're learning new things, you're on the treasurer of a nonprofit. It can tell what you're doing while you're in transition. That's a possibility. Then I would go into your work history, most recent, and then work your way back, 10 years, again, in most cases. Then I would put any certifications, skills you've got. I would put your educational history. Even for recent college grads, I tell them, do not put your education at the top. No. That you need to be focused on skills, internships, part-time work, volunteer work. So education at the bottom. If you have volunteer work that you've done that's older, that's not current, you could put that at the bottom, like community engagement. I think that's totally fine. I personally might, in this current climate, avoid the political or the religious on a resume, unless you're trying to get a job at a political or a religious organization. That is totally up to your discretion. I personally might steer clear of that in the current climate, but I'll leave that up to your good judgment. Does that help? Okay. All right. So we had a couple of people share their relevant experience. Now, number 3, can anybody articulate for me the kind of position at the kind of organization they're looking for? Again, let's not get fancy. Let's just be, I'm looking for a position, information technology at a small nonprofit. I mean, being as clear as possible and avoiding industry jargon. Anybody want to take a crack at that? Yes.
Actually, I want to start in a nonprofit.
Good. Okay.
There's so many programs out there for young people.
Yes.
Between the ages of like 14 to 25. What about the people that are 20 plus that you know that need to step up for the future?
Mm-hmm.
Get them into some of these companies that are implementing.
So like a mentoring program for like, are you thinking like young people just finishing college, or are you thinking people?
Yeah, because I know specific people who have been on dead-end jobs.
Right.
Anywhere, but have skill sets, they can do other things.
Mm-hmm.
They never get the opportunity and they don't have the educational background to move forward.
You're preaching to the choir.
Okay. All right. Well, what I would say about that is you might want to find out, like, in the universe of nonprofits, who's doing what, like.
I know one's been specific, but they do the younger kids, which is called Year Up.
Yes.
They get the kids in there, they give
Yes.
guidance, school background.
Yeah.
They do internships and then they find a job.
Yes.
That's the same thing that I would like to do for older.
Okay. There's also a program called A Million Degrees.
Yes.
That's one that might sort of bridge what you're talking about. They work with young people who are getting their associate's degree at a community college, and they help connect them with mentors, internships, with the idea that not everybody's going to get a 4-year degree, and that's okay, but let's give them the support to have success when they complete. And they partner with in some cases, community colleges, and in some cases, people who just find them, and then they do exactly what you're talking about. So, yeah, I think that looking at organizations who are doing something similar to what you want to do to get a sense of where the gaps are. Yeah, did you have a question? 1 million degrees? I think 1 million degrees. Yeah. Pounder, something is the executive director. Yeah. So it's well-regarded organization. Yes, did you have a question?
I have a quick question for her. So you're interested in starting these organizations? So,
But it's good to know like what's out there so you can figure out where the gaps are. Yeah.
So, a question for you.
Yeah.
I teach at Roosevelt.
Okay.
And I've been doing it a number of years, but I also see from my daughter who's 23.
Sure.
Her friends that have not had the opportunities to go to college or to move on, they shouldn't be stagnated in a place when they have a skill level. They're very bright people. They just
Right.
don't have the opportunity.
Right.
But I was thinking about like interviewing 1 million degrees or something there or Europe and try to see how they recruited people.
Right. And how they support them. Yes. Did you have a question or comment?
no, I was going to ask, I was going to do that after.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I mean, I think part of what you're doing is you're really doing informational interviewing to find out what's out there so you know where the gaps are to figure out, okay, so I think in that case you could say things like, I'm actively working to learn more about youth-serving organizations that help people, young people, 21 to 30, find their niche. And I'm interested in meeting people at 1 million degrees, a year up. There's that I See Stars, Girls That Code is one I've heard about. So yeah, you might want to say, can you connect me to people at these organizations so I can learn more about what they're doing to see whether your idea, like, is there a gap? Is there a niche that you could fill? Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, and then, yes, you had a question.
I wanted to answer that. I am looking for it seriously. You say, even if it's a dream, I want to be a senior program officer for the National Endowment of the Arts, and I am looking to help arts organizations find funding.
Okay, so have you thought, about the idea of maybe volunteering at an arts organization to learn about how to write grants, maybe getting a job, maybe getting a volunteer position as a grant reviewer for like the city of Chicago has, they give out arts funding. You've done that? Okay.
So I'm just pursuing, but I was just trying to see if that works in your business frame.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very, very specific thing that you want to do. I think it's good to have a plan A and a plan B. So your plan A could be, working for the NEA as a grant reviewer or as a program officer, and maybe looking at a plan B. Maybe there's some other organizations that you might want to consider, because I think it's hard to just say, I'm only interested in one position at one organization. That's so narrow. Just a thought. I'm not discouraging the dream. I'm encouraging the dream, but I'm thinking having a backup plan. Right? Okay. All right. Anybody else want to share anything on number 3? Okay. How about number 4? Have you guys figured out some specific asks once you are talking with somebody about how they can help you? Okay. Anybody willing to share that? Okay. Yes. So are you trying to learn about how education delivery has changed? In other words, move towards webinars, e-learning, hybrid classes? Okay. 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 Yeah, no, I think that's a reasonable ask. You know, you could look at, asking somebody, do you know somebody at the university level who might be coordinating like an online learning program, a hybrid learning program, that I could learn more about what's working, what tools are being used, and how are they successful in helping students meet their learning needs and creating a sense of community. So yeah, I think that's a legitimate ask, and I think there are very likely people you could meet with who could tell you about that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to share? Okay. I guess we're shared out. Not a problem. I appreciate you all being good sports and being willing to share and help each other. So I think we've clearly established that getting your message out about who you are and what you offer is going to determine your success in job search. I think we're all in agreement on that, right? Right now, about 75% of people who find work report that they're finding it through networking. Does that mean you ignore the job boards? No, it doesn't. It means you have to have a tandem approach. It means that in addition to applying through an online application, you also must be networking. When you apply for a job, you need to be using LinkedIn and your contacts to find an internal contact to advocate for you. And because you're mid-career, you have a vast network, right? You have quite a good network, and you are in an advantage that you can leverage your network to advocate for you when you're applying for jobs. I would even say if the online applicant screening system will accept cover letters, in that first or second sentence, mention who your internal contact is with their permission, so that when they read it, they're clear you've got an internal advocate and they can start asking about you. Okay. Yes.
So with that, I have tried that a few times.
Okay.
What I'm finding is a lot of people are finding out the fragility of their own position or their importance or their influence within their company. So I've had someone that was trying to get me into a place that they were well established in.
Okay.
They could not really advocate successfully, even when there were appropriate positions
Okay.
available. So that's been my experience.
Okay. So your experience has been that it's been difficult for people to advocate to help a new person get in the company. Well, that's interesting because a lot of the surveys are showing that most hiring managers would prefer to hire somebody recommended by an employee because they view it as lower risk. Because if you've got a good employee who's recommending someone, chances are good they're not going to risk their credibility over somebody who's flaky. Yes, yes. Well, I would say that tends to be the best way to get yourself through the huge pool of people in that applicant screening system. I just think it's just a matter of finding the right company, the right place, and the right people. But I think if you're just applying online without any kind of internal support, it's going to be a long slog. I mean, it's just, we had a client a couple of years ago, and this was in like 2012. So she applied for a position as Director of Organizational Development at McDonald's. They got over 5,000 resumes. And HR was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? They didn't expect this for some reason. So what they decided to do was to take the first 25 people who'd applied online that met all the search criteria based on that applicant screening system. Then they talked to managers saying, do you have anybody internally or do you know anybody who is interested? And our client was one of those. So they came up with another 10 people. So they had a pool of 35 people out of 5,000 that they looked at, and they interviewed the 35 out of 5,000. And our client, she did end up getting the job, and she found out later what had happened. 5,000 people. And they said the only objective way was to pick the first 25 who applied who met all the screening criteria. And then look at Stroger Hospital, Shackman Decree. They have anybody can apply, and the database automatically pulls up candidates. So that's a case with a county job where it's probably going to do you very little good to network in. But in the case of Claire, the client at McDonald's, I mean, this made a huge difference for her because somebody was advocating for it and got her pulled out of that pile of 5,000. Yes.
I have to admit, I'm beginning my search, and so I'm not even on LinkedIn.
Oh.
I know. And so I'm getting to see how important this is.
Yes.
So,
This is going to become, in the next 5 years, even more important than your resume.
but how do okay, so you're saying you can use contacts that you've met through LinkedIn?
Yes.
Without even meeting them in person?
So all right, we're going to take a little detour on LinkedIn. No, that's okay. It's a good question. So you're on LinkedIn. All right, I have 500 contacts on LinkedIn. So let's say that I'm looking to find somebody at the National Kidney Foundation. So what I'll do is I'll put National Kidney Foundation in that little search tab, and it'll tell me, like, everybody who works there, and it'll tell a little number, 1 degree of separation, 2 degrees, 3 degrees of separation. So you want to get the closest to the person that you want to speak to. So let's say that I found somebody that's like 2 degrees of separation, and a friend of mine is that connection. I'll say, Joanne, can you connect me to Jim, the National Kidney Foundation? You know them. Could you help me? And I will literally write an introduction with my little value statement saying, hey, Jim, I want to introduce you to my good friend Anita. I've worked with her, I think, really highly of her. Here's her background. I'd like to ask if you would consider having coffee with her to talk about the National Kidney Foundation. That's how you would use LinkedIn, because it's the multiplier effect. I've got my 500 plus all their contacts. Yes?
And is this for paid LinkedIn, or can you do
No,
that?
I don't have the job seeker version because I'm not job seeking. I just have the basic version. Yeah. Yeah. And CTC offers on its website, if you go to our website, you should be able to see it under client library. There's a 15-part, it's a webinar that we broke down into like 15 5-minute segments. It's like content, security setting, job search. You can look at that and see a brief 5-minute video on a specific section or a specific part of LinkedIn if you want to learn more about it. And later this year, probably in November, we're going to offer a half-day LinkedIn accelerator where you can come in, for a small fee, work with a coach in a small group setting to work on your profile. You'll bring your little tablet or laptop, and right then and there, you will open it up and start working on it with a coach. So and then LinkedIn also offers some free webinars, varying qualities, but nonetheless. Yes?
Okay, this is veering a little bit, but just wondering, like right now I'm looking for an opportunity to work in human resources.
Okay.
And so, because I haven't secured that position, I still have to.
Right.
So if I take a position that's not in that direction, let's say another executive assistant position that doesn't have an HR component to it, am I hurting myself? What do I say while I'm job seeking, but I'm not gaining more skills in the direction that I need?
Well, I think in your case, you explained that you've been working as a temp, as an admin assistant, while you finished your degree, and that you took temp assignments that allowed you to have the flexibility to finish school, and then you'll finish school, and then now the time you spend on school, you can now focus on looking for a career path job. Yeah. Sure. Okay, so our next slide is okay, so there's a method to the madness. I wanted to build you guys up, get us feeling really good about ourselves before we start talking about the dark night of the soul stuff. Okay, so we're all feeling good about ourselves, yes? Yes. Excellent. So we're going to talk about what are some age stereotypes. So throw out a couple of negative age stereotypes. Yes?
Since they're older, they don't know how to use a computer or technology.
Exactly. They think we're Luddites. We're not. Okay. Another one. Okay, good. Oh, too slow, overpaid, inflexible? Okay. All right.
That, and because we're at a certain age or have a certain skill set, they think we can't offer them this job because they won't accept it.
Right. So let's accept one truth right now. The likelihood that the next person you interview with is going to be younger than you is pretty high. So the first thing you've got to do is get your mindset in the right place, which is we need to find a way to connect with them and build a relationship and not let them think we are being condescending. We're not their parents, we're not their auntie. We need to build an equal relationship with them, right? So you need to figure out how do you do that. So I think you looked at their LinkedIn profile, you get a sense of them, and just treat them like you would want them to treat you. You don't want them to treat you like an old codger, so don't be condescending towards them. So first of all, come to grips with high likelihood the next person you interview with is probably going to be 10 or 15 years younger than you. Come to grips with that. Don't work on not feeling resentful, and be prepared to make your case overtly and covertly. So if we know that they think we don't know anything about Twitter or Facebook, be prepared to throw in anecdotes that counteracts that. So for example, I was meeting with the executive director of another organization. She is probably 20 years younger than me. Super smart, MBA, knows everything about technology. Great. I really got the impression she thought I was like doddering off into the old age. And so we started talking, just chit-chatting while we were waiting for a colleague of mine to join me. And I talked about the fact that how much I like Twitter. I had recently placed an order with Zappos, and they completely messed up the order, like used the postal service to ship it, which it got lost, and I was quite unhappy. When I told Zappos that I was unhappy in their chat line, they were like, well, find it on another website and we'll reimburse you. I said, oh no, I ordered it from you all. You need to make this happen. You go on your competitor's website and you send me the shoes. And they're like, well, and I said, I'm taking to Twitter right now as we talk. Ding, 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 ding. Really not happy. They have this 100% guarantee. I am not happy. So they immediately were like, ching, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go on our competitor's website, get you those shoes. If those other shoes ever show up, you can keep those. We're going to give you a $100 gift certificate, and we're going to have you be our VIP customer so you never have to pay for FedEx. I'm like, I am real happy. So I was telling her the story, and we were laughing and laughing. So what did I just do? I showed that I'm kind of hip. Shows that I know how to use Twitter. I understand how to use it and leverage it. So right off the bat, I'm kind of defying her expectations about, oh, this is somebody who's 53 who probably doesn't know even what Twitter is. So, I mean, you don't have to use quite such an aggressive example, but I thought it was pretty funny because all you have to do is say to, like, consumer companies, I'm taking to Twitter, and they cannot wait to help you enough. And it's a way to build rapport, get a laugh, and it shows that I'm not afraid of technology. And you could probably tone it down and not sound like, Godzilla, the way I probably just did. But, I mean, it was so funny because I'd read about this in magazines, and I'm like, I wonder if this would work. Yes, it does. So another example would be something like, this is a good one. You go to the airline, and they're overbooked, and this and that, and they're trying to, like, blow you off, and the customer service gate people can't do anything. Don't bother to get in line. Get on Twitter and start tweeting about, I am stranded in Montana, and I can't understand this, and I need some help. Their customer service people will be on it. They will get you where you need to go much faster than if you go to the gate agent. So totally true. Share an anecdote. Try it and tell people about it. Drop this so that they get a sense that you're a casual user, you're not uncomfortable. Do you see how, like, you're building rapport, creating a story, and dispelling some stereotypes they might have floating in their mind? Okay. So this is the covert part. So, overqualified, overpriced. Oh yes, I hear this all the time. So here's what I would say. You got to understand what your strategy is. Many of you talked about the importance of work-life balance, wanting to have more flexibility, being less stressed. So we have a client who I think I mentioned was the director of communications at a very large faith-based nonprofit. She'd done that for, 18 years and was just like, I cannot go back to that kind of stress. I need to be able to have more of a life. So what she decided to do is to look at what in her career that she really liked. She really liked crisis management, media relations, beginning and end, rather than being director of publications, dealing with the media, dealing with newsletters, dealing with donor appeals. She wanted to do this. So she started applying for jobs that were like, director of media relations, associate director of communications focused on media. So she started getting interviews, and people were like, wow, you've done all these things. And so she was beginning to think, okay, now I think they're worried because they're thinking I'm just looking for a job, and as soon as the better job, the big job comes, I'm going to jump ship. So you've got to get ahead of them on this. You've got to name the elephant in the room, own it, and say it. Say, You know, I'm so appreciative of you bringing me in for this interview. I have always wanted to work at Metropolitan Family Services. I really like the work that you do with children, and I am really excited about this position in media relations. And let me be candid. I'm at a point in my career when I think I've accomplished a lot of the things that I want. My passion is crisis management and dealing with the media. This position aligns beautifully with where I want to go. And I have the flexibility at this point in my career to make other choices. I have flexibility on salary, and I have the ability to focus on where my passion is. Part two is your networking person, the person that helped you get this interview, the person that is your internal advocate, they need to be saying the same thing, saying, look, Jean is looking for the right job, not any job. She's not looking to jump ship. She's looking for the right job. And this mission and this position is where she excels, right? Can you see where that would be effective? You've got to understand what they're worried about. They don't want, excuse me. They don't want to be going through this again in 6 months. Oh, I've got some sodas. My apologies. So your goal is to reassure them that they are your target employer and that this position is what you've been seeking. You're not just looking for any job. That's where I think if you're strategic about this, you can overcome their concerns and you can get that job. Like we had a client who had been director of communications at a fairly large museum, found it stressful, had a mother who has Alzheimer's and could not continue at that pace. So she was looking to be an executive, like a personal executive assistant to like a CEO, like a chief of staff. And so she said, look, here are the talents and skills I bring. I can do crisis management. I've coordinated a large staff. I worked at a major cultural institution. I have connections all over the city. You know, I can help you with like the philanthropy. I can help you with communications, media relations. And I'm looking for this in exchange. And she was able to find it. I think you've got to know what you're looking for, and you've got to be able to make the case and reassure the employer. That's how you overcome the objections of overpriced and overqualified. Okay? All right. Biding time till retirement. I mean, I work with nothing but people, and they're predominantly 50s, 60s. I don't hear people saying, I'm looking to coast. I mean, people still want to contribute. You're here because you're not looking to coast. You're looking for something better. You're looking for something compelling. And I heard for so many of you, you still want to contribute. Yes?
And maybe there are a lot of people who can't afford to retire.
Well, that is a certain reality, yes. After the recession, I think it's fair to say a lot of our retirement portfolios took a big hit. And some of us have not saved enough, too. So, yes, but I think, too, we're all living longer. So what are we going to do, retire at 65 and sit around and paint our toenails? I mean, no. I mean, I can't imagine. My mom's a nurse, and she worked until she was 72. She's like, what was I supposed to do, right? We still have a lot to contribute. What I am seeing among people in their 60s, particularly, is that they want to work part-time at a job, at a professional job, and spend half their time doing volunteer work and traveling. That seems to be what people who have that choice and the ability are looking to do. They still want to contribute. At CTC, we have about 40 coaches. Probably a third are retired professionals, a third have their own business, and about a third are still working. And some of our coaches are in their upper 70s and keep vibrant. They're on LinkedIn. They're doing workshops on technology. I mean, I think, again, the key is being a lifelong learner. Okay.
I wanted to share
Yeah.
one well, two. I was looking for a job, a specific job in church, and I developed a relationship with one of the guys that was there.
Okay.
Then I went on Glassdoor and started looking them up to see what their culture was.
Right.
And it was really helpful, actually. It was
Yes.
really helpful, because they get reviews of people who work there.
Yes.
That's very good.
I think it is, but again, I would encourage you to look at the outliers. Don't look at the worst and the best, look in the middle. Because I actually, for kicks, looked at the Women's Treatment Center and saw some interesting comments, and at some places, if it's big enough, it really is dependent on your supervisor as much as the culture itself. So yeah, I do think that's good. I would also encourage you to look at AARP, their website, Work Reimagined. They have a list of employers who specifically are interested in hiring older workers. And they feel that they have an older work, a positive work culture that embraces and values older workers. So yes. AARP, Work Reimagined.
Is that like, I can Google that?
Yes. And they'll have a link, and they have all kinds of tools, and they have some videos, I recall, and then they have a list of employers, and I believe you can click right there to the employers and look at the jobs. But yeah, ARP is doing a lot to promote older workers and to make them valuable to employers. Okay, positive age stereotypes. So here's something I would say. People think younger workers are more physically able and healthy. So I have 3 board members who are in their 60s and 70s who are running the Chicago Marathon. The priest at Old St. Pat's, he's got to be 53. He has run in the Chicago Marathon for the last 5 years. So I think I may not be the best representative, I'll just say that right now, but in general, I think we're a healthy bunch. On my dresser at home, I have a picture of my grandmother and grandfather with my dad, and they were about my age. And I looked, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I look so much younger than my grandmother. No offense to her, but we've had better nutrition, better health care, we're in better shape, we keep ourselves intellectually more engaged. So I would say that I can think of a lot of older workers who I think are in really good shape. So I think that's very individualistic. But I do think there are some positive age stereotypes that are true. Reliable, punctual, loyal, mature, stable, have industry experience, have contacts, particularly if you're in sales, marketing, that's valued. Work ethic, high motivation to work because of money and socialization. Yes?
My current supervisor told me that I was hired because on my resume it says I have a long attention span.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, that's a new one. I have not heard somebody say that.
I was surprised.
But if it works for you, keep doing it. So I would make the case that I think older workers are easier to supervise because we're used to working independently. I would also say we tend to be flexible on our salary. I don't see many people that I feel are really rigid about that. I think we're creative, innovative, and I think we are energetic. And I don't know about others, but I do endure long work hours, and I would challenge other people to work the hours that I do that are half my age. I think it would be tough. So, stereotypes, they're generalizations, and it's our goal to overcome those generalizations by helping them see us as individuals with specific talents and skills. I think we've talked a good bit about that. Networking. Again, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of establishing relationships with those who can hire or refer you, building a rapport with the people you network with, that you interview with, and exhibit those good values. Follow up with thank you emails, follow up with an article that you share, send people a LinkedIn invitation when you meet with them. Yeah.
So emails are okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. If they're time sensitive, you need to get that email. I think within 24 hours of meeting with someone, you need to send out an email, thank you. If somebody's gone above and beyond to help you, I think it's great if you send them a nice handwritten note. But sometimes in the interviewing cycle, you don't have time for them to get the handwritten letter that you mail them. And sometimes I think it's more important to be quick than to be formal. Yeah.
Another question,
Yeah.
actually, because I haven't interviewed in a while, but I remember years ago you used to print out your resume on bond paper. Do you need to bring
I think you should, yeah.
Does it need to be up on paper?
No, I think any old kind of paper, but white paper. I think it's white paper. Try and make sure it's at least 11-point font. I wouldn't go lower than 11 point. Try not to get too fancy also, and I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but formatting is important. If you're trying to get it through those applicant screening systems, you need to avoid like fancy stuff, asterisks, bullets as much as possible. I mean, you need to be careful about the kinds of things because it can get caught up in the system. Yes?
I've been hearing a lot, trying myself about HV, human voice resumes. They're less formal. I mean,
Okay, so I think I know what you're talking about. So Chase Bank, they have a new recruiting strategy. They'll put a position out, and then once you get through the applicant screening system, if they think they're interested, they'll send you a link and expect you to do like a 20-minute video explaining why you're the best candidate, and they ask you a series of questions, and then you have like 10 seconds to record, delete, and re-record. Is that what you're talking about?
well, I've done that also.
Okay.
It's a more conversational resume.
Okay,
Versus formally just listing these things and
right.
buzzwords and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they call it human voice.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds kind of like the thing at Chase. I mean, whatever the employer wants, you got to do it. I mean, if you want the job, you got to jump through the hoops. So at Chase, you got to do their applicant screening system, have your cover letter, have your resume, and then once they select you, then you have to do this like 1-minute video interview resume thing. So pretty much you got to play the game. That's why it's important to keep up with technology, get friendly and comfortable with Skype, play around with it with your kids, with your grandkids, with friends out of state, so you get comfortable using it. So when somebody says, oh, we need you to participate in a group Skype interview, you're not like, oh my God, but you're like, okay, fine.
Is it common nowadays?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So it's not just you and the hiring manager in New York. It could be ding, 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 it could be 3 or 4 people on that little call. So get comfortable with Skype now so that you can, it's better to do it while, like I have a friend, she has a friend in New Jersey, and so they Skype once a week. So she's like a whiz at this, and she's encountered every possible technical problem. So when she has to do interviews, this is like nothing for her. Get comfortable while you're not under pressure. And if you do have to do a Skype interview, find somebody that has done it before or is comfortable with Skype and do a run-through, do a trial run with them, practice, and pay attention to the background. I mean, and make sure you're position it also, like get that laptop up on some books so you're looking at them as opposed to them looking up your nose. I mean, pay attention and record and try and focus. But yeah, you're going to have to do whatever the employer wants you to, within reason. Okay. All righty. Oh, did somebody ask something?
I just added lighting counts.
Lighting counts. Yes, it does. Lighting counts. Yes. Do a trial run to make sure you can be seen and heard. Yes. Did you have a question back there?
No, just a suggestion, my most recent interview with Skype, and I
Okay.
the business reference books, make sure I wasn't caught from under the chin.
Yes. Good. Yes. Elevate it up a little bit. Another thing before I get to you is sometimes it can be a little intimidating to do these Skype and phone interviews. What I typically do is I print out their LinkedIn profile in color so I have their picture in front of me, or I tape it to the wall so I feel like I'm talking to a person. It makes me feel less intimidated, just a tip. Yeah, did you have something?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
How do you quietly or confidentially network using LinkedIn? If you're not in transition, I'm not in transition. I'm currently, I'm like this.
Okay. Well, make sure that your LinkedIn profile, okay, we got half an hour. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is as robust as possible, that you've got a good current picture, that you at that expert level. Make sure that you've got, I would recommend at least 3 recommendations. Make sure you've got some of those little popularity contest boxes going where it's like, where people are saying, giving you, what's it called? With their endorsements, thank you. Make sure you've got a bunch of those, because for some reason, recruiters really take that seriously. I thought it was just whatever, but no, they really take that seriously. So make sure, build it up so it looks really good, And please check it for typos, spelling, things like that. Make sure your hyperlinks are working. And then there's no reason why you can't do a stealth search. You can use it, again, to look for contacts. I think as you do updates, it'll go out to your network, and then people will see it, and when I see somebody starting to sharpen up their LinkedIn profile, I'm kind of knowing, and that's fine. Also, it could get the attention of recruiters because they will purchase like data mining packages, and if you're at that like 99th percentile where you're like the expert, that's going to put you in a good position for recruiters to find you. And more, we're seeing people being approached by recruiters. I was just approached by a recruiter after I updated, I don't know what, I think I put a new credential or something on. Yes?
So what if I've already accomplished that?
Okay.
Avoid it negatively affecting my current employer. That's what
Right. So I think then at this point you need to figure out who your target employers are and start looking for contacts and start seeing if you can get some connections and start doing some informational interviews, coffees before work, lunch meetings, drinks after work. I don't think it's, I mean, I doubt your supervisor's looking at your LinkedIn profile. I mean, I don't look at my employees' LinkedIn profiles. Yes? Okay. Okay. Right, but I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's impossible to look for a job while you're employed. We have probably 30% of our clients that are doing that. That's where you're doing the coffees before work, you're doing lunch meetings, you're doing cocktails in the evenings. You can accomplish a lot even while you're working. You could do that. That's up to you if you want to pay the, bless you, what is it, 10 or 20 bucks a month. Some people will do that while they're working their job search and then let it expire afterwards. But yeah, I think it could be a good investment. Look at it. They give you a trial of, I think, 30 days. Play with it and see if it makes sense for you. Okay. All right. So we've talked about inventorying your skills, knowledge, and strengths, researching feasible opportunities. We've talked about developing your compelling case, and we've talked a lot about using your network to make connections. Social media. By a show of hands, how many of you are on LinkedIn? Excellent. Oh, good. Good. How many of you are using Facebook or Twitter for your job search? Good. Like to see more, but we can get there. I would encourage you to spend some time setting up a Twitter profile that you would use just for job search, separate from the personal one. Mine right now is focused on like social justice stuff, cats, and travel. So nobody really cares. So it's better to have one that's just for business. Start following the companies you're interested in, particularly the technology companies. Guess what? They're tweeting out their job postings, and they expect you to privately tweet back. So some of them are just like, done with Career Builder. We're just going to tweet it right out, and they want to know who are the tech-savvy people that are following us. It's also a quick way to find out breaking news, what's going on, if they're having layoffs, that kind of thing. So I encourage you to do that. How many of you are familiar with Hootsuite or Scoop It? Yay. Okay, so Hootsuite is a way to sort of put all your posts in, and then it'll send it out based on timing, and it'll do it for you. So we use it as an organization because we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and it just helps distribute, get things out. That could, my friend Dawn is very heavy on social media, so she's got like 1,000 people on Twitter, so she does that. Scoop It. How many of you know Scoop It? Oh, goody. Okay, Scoop It is a great website. So why would you want to use it? Scoop It is a way to identify curated content. Let's say that you want to establish, like my friend Dawn is trying to really make a name for herself in cyber security. She works as an senior claims analyst at an insurance company, and she's now a subject matter expert in cyber security. So part of what she did was she wrote articles for internal publications. She wrote articles, posted on LinkedIn, and she also found articles on cybersecurity through Scoop It and posted and shared it with her network. So this is a way for you to put through curated content that demonstrates that you're, a thought leader, you're aware of what's being published, you're sharing with others. And after you meet with someone, when you do a follow-up email, you want to be reciprocal. You've asked them for your time. You want to be of assistance to them. Say, you know what? After we met, I found this really interesting article, and I wanted to share it with you on cybersecurity. Well, you can use Scoop It, and it'll curate it. It'll do all the data mining for you. You put in the parameters, and it'll give you some articles. Great way to raise your profile on LinkedIn, to share information with your network on whatever your topic is. So Scoop It, really good. Yes?
How helpful / harmful can having something like a blog?
Having something like a what? I think it depends on what's in the blog. For example, we have a client who's trying to move from sort of traditional marketing to more social media, so he's been doing a blog talking about use of blogs and social media. So, I mean, that could be relevant. If, on the other hand, you're advocating anarchism, that might not be helpful. So I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Whatever you do, make sure that you check for misspellings, make sure your hyperlinks work. Don't say anything that could be, yeah, okay. So, got a few more minutes. So just a few quick tips on social media. Again, get the word out, tell your if you're in transition, tell your network that you're looking. Reach out to people, let them know what you're specifically looking for. Get those at least 3 recommendations. I would suggest getting somebody above you, below you, and equal to you. Get somebody a direct report, get somebody you report to, and a peer. I think it shows that you're well-rounded. So I think that could be valuable, because I've noticed more and more clients are telling me when they apply for jobs, they're like, I want to speak to somebody you supervise, someone supervised you, and someone who is a peer. I want to hear a 360. What would people say about you? Okay. Build your network before you need it. The time to leap into networking should not be when you're looking for a job. You should be cultivating and maintaining your network all along. Facebook. If you decide to use Facebook, please be careful what you post. Do not be showing yourself in Ireland drinking, Guinness. I mean, be careful. People have lost their jobs for things they posted, particularly teachers. So be mindful, yes. In Illinois, it is illegal to ask somebody during a job interview for the password to their social media accounts. Not illegal in all states. Yes. So, yes, it is illegal in Illinois during a job interview to ask someone for the password of their social media accounts, because you want to see what they're doing for either a prospective or a current employee. It is not illegal in other states. In other states, employers have said, if you want this job, I need to look at your social media accounts. Give me your passwords. Use good judgment, okay? Forewarned is forearmed. Choose your friends wisely. Some teachers that we work with, we have a lot of CPS and Catholic school teachers who are laid off. They'll have 2 Facebook accounts. One where they'll let the kids that they and their parents, friend them, and one that's just for, their friends. That might be a possible compromise. We've talked about Twitter. Include your resume, include your bio. Have a professional photo. I was at a workshop at another university last spring, and somebody said, I'm a professional photographer. I do not want to put my photo on LinkedIn, but I have a beautiful photo of a pumpkin at sunrise. Could I use that? And I'm like, no. No. The answer is no. You must use a professional photo, and as a matter of fact, about once a quarter, we have a professional photographer come to CTC for like $50. You get your picture taken, and it would normally cost like $250. So universities have done that. I think Columbia's even done that in the past. But churches are doing that. I mean, you can find a decent photograph. For that matter, get yourself up against a decent background, take a good photo, but just be professional. Don't do silly stuff. Look at other job seekers' Twitter sites. And for that matter, if you're struggling with your LinkedIn site, look at other people in your field and see how they're describing themselves. No reason you can't get ideas and put it in your own words. Okay. So we are now almost at the question and answer section, but I did want to talk about a couple of resources. ARP. Again, Work Reimagined. I think it's a really good resource. They have tips, they have videos, they have links to employers that want to hire us folks over 40. ONET, really good resource. ONET Online, Department of Labor website, and it's basically the Occupational Outlook Handbook in a searchable database. You can look at occupational projections for jobs on the state level, the national level. You can look at salary projections. They tell you the green job economies, jobs that are growing fast. They even have free quizzes, like, I don't know what I want to do, but I'll know it if I see it. And they'll ask you a series of maybe 40 questions, and at the end say, think about these families of jobs. You can learn about what it takes to get those jobs, what kind of experience, what kind of credentials. It's a really good free tool. And we've talked a little bit about it, Glassdoor, Indeed, Simply Hired. For those of you interested in nonprofit work, npo.net is going to, or idealist.org. If you're in a professional association or a union, obviously add those to your website. Look at Columbia's website. Okay, we have hit the question hour mark. So I just wanted to open it up. I think we've kind of talked as we've gone along, but please feel free. Is there any question that we haven't discussed? Anything you'd like to know? Yes?
I think it's been really helpful.
Good.
Talk about it, because I feel like it's getting mired in my ICP for
Okay.
hunting experience. Anyway, my obstacle seems to be the first question. I get on the phone, what are your salary requirements? Over and over and over.
Okay.
And I'm not willing to take the same salary that I earned 15 years ago.
Right.
More money, but now time has passed by. So how,
Okay, so...
tell them my minimum, I never hear back.
Okay, so first of all, what I think you need to do is to do some research before you get to that conversation. So you need to go on ONET Online, Glassdoor, Indeed, salary.com, and do some research. Find out what the position pays so that you have a sense of the range. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, if it's a position as, say, an account manager at a public relations agency, do some research to find out what the salaries are. Look at Glassdoor, Indeed, salary.com, ONET, and get a sense of what the range is. And when they ask, you say, you know what, I have some flexibility, and my research looking at blah, blah, blah indicates that 50 to 70,000 seems like a reasonable goal. I have some flexibility. Tell me what you're looking. What's your range? Like, what's in your budget? Let's not make this a competition. I'm interested, you're interested, I want to work with you on this. See your hand over here? Nope. We're all good? Thank you all for being so wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anita. Just a reminder, we're going to send an email out with this PowerPoint presentation with a link to get the newsletter that Anita was just discussing. And then this has also been recorded, so we'll have the whole presentation on the alumni website probably within the next few days. All right? So you can rewatch it at a later date if you'd like. But thank you again, everyone. There's some goodies on the back and some more job information on the checkout table. Thank you again.
Thank you. Fun group, good group of people.
Thank you so much, Anita.
So